It's another week in the For Your Reference household, and it is another quid pro mo. Oti, we are living in the world of the reimagining.
Woohoo!
And thank you so much to Tim for inviting us as his very first guest in the reimagining of Popcorn Pals. We're working on Popcorn Friends and Lovers, I'm very sure. This is the second time we've ever done this, Friends and Lovers. Shout outs to Late to the Show. Hopefully you guys are doing well. We did a collab where we did Into the Spider-Verse, which is timely because it's coming out soon. But we had so much to say, we had to do a full review on our podcast, which is exactly what we're doing. Again, thank you, Tim and the team at Popcorn Podcast. Go and check out that Muy Caliente episode. Tim shares a lot of very personal experiences with Ariel, which we won't spoil here. But we're also going to get into some detail as well.
We are.
Hot doggy. Let's get on with the show. Friends and scuttlebutt.
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 Friends and lovers, welcome back to the For Your Reference household. You got your host, Katie.
And Oti.
If you wonder why we don't cover age-appropriate for children movies, you'll start to see, friends and lovers. Set the romantic boat scene with heartfelt vocals, lovable misfits, and daddy approval.
Ooh.
Yeehaw! Succumb to exposition tentacles with the 2023 The Little Mermaid this week.
Woohoo!
Ooh. Okay, well, let's get into general information. We kind of did some first impressions over at Popcorn Pals, but let's get into it, shall we? Director Rob Marshall, most notably for Pirates of the Caribbean, our fellow correspondent.
Oh, Caribbean.
Wow, you gave us a third option. Okay, screenplay by David McGee, released May 2023, obviously with Pamela's pangolin paninis, Pamela around the world.
Wow.
Yeah, I got two Pamelas because I feel bad for not watching Tom and Pam. I can only listen to one talking dick, friends and lovers at a time.
Wow.
Cast. Hailey Bailey, that's all that matters.
Yeah, that's all there was.
Literally. But if we must, Jonah Hauer King, Melissa McCarthy, Javier Bardem. I don't know, man. I could have been like David Diggs' wife.
Wow.
In the third option of the pronunciation you just went through. Noma Demezweni, David Diggs, Jacob Tremblay, Aquafina, and a whole bunch of trinkets all along the way. Let's get into first impressions. You gave us a very interesting fact that, I learned to stop fact checking you because I also don't like to be humbled. But you taught us something in Popcorn Pal. So spoiler, thirsty.
Hailey Bailey's compelling portrayal of Ariel emerges as a highlight. Her exquisite vocals and perfect embodiment of the character imbues a sense of grace, despite the live-action adaptation struggling to capture the original's vibrance.
Look at you burying the lady.
I found it weird how it was laid out. I think halfway through, I was struggling a bit with it. I think with Hailey's performance, I think that was the only sort of saving grace. By the end of it, I think even Melissa McCarthy was quite good.
Lizzo auditioned for the role of Ursula.
Oh, yeah?
And even Melissa McCarthy was like, why the fuck am I? And it's like, no, get out of the way then. Stop this disingenuous. If you genuinely believe that you weren't right for the role, step aside. And I'm also speaking to the colorism of Lilo and Stitch. You could have timed it, friends and lovers. Of course I was going to say it.
You wanted Ariel, Tamika, and...
Oh, so all the things that you seemingly forgot to say on Popcorn Pals, hey? I think I scared Tim with the Sandman reference. It was a very specific reference for all of the Sandman nerds. You're reading it. How's it going?
Loving it.
Does it explain why Javier has so many different daughters?
It does.
Okay, well, there you go.
Oh, I just remember enjoying sort of watching the show because there was a TV series at the time. And I had forgotten the core sort of storyline of, the movie about her just fasting and looking for legs. Fuck that. It was adventures under the sea, and you'd have adventures with Sebastian, Flounder, Scuttle even. It was fun times.
Yeah.
She wasn't looking for legs in that. So I had completely forgotten sort of the narrative because we didn't watch the movie. We didn't watch the original while going into it.
No, we are learned friends and lovers, but I guess we only have so much time.
Yeah, it had been a while, but wow. I think that just took me aback because the storyline was so weak that you don't build a live action around it, to my opinion.
Okay, cool. I agree. I just didn't know we were going so hard.
No, I'd say it.
All right. So this was too much of a sad Katie story that I didn't say it on Popcorn Pals. But when I was like 5 or 6, me and my sister wanted to be with like the older siblings and the older cousins, and we were out at the beach. And I don't understand irony. Maybe this is irony. But me and my sister went out too far than we should have, and we both drowned. Spoiler alert, I'm still alive. I'm a fucking ass, but I'm still alive. But during that time, my sister was in a bit more of a serious condition. So I guess, between my therapist and new friends and lovers, you can decide how that affected me. But they were spending a lot more time, understandably, with my sister. I was a bit more conscious, and I was just sitting there, and Disney movies kind of became my thing, right? So it's interesting because it's one of those shout outs to Astronomy Club, one of the greatest sketch shows out there. You can talk about Netflix, you can talk about whatever it is, but the Astronomy Club, great. And they have a sketch of like trauma that you didn't realize that was trauma. You can't even sleep laying down anymore. Like, those sorts of anecdotes, right? So I don't think I've ever watched The Little Mermaid since then, but I watched it on loop when I was a kid in the hospital, like Archer at a lacrosse game.
Was there a paddle?
Damn, dog. Is there like a little OT in the corner? That's not how you use time travel, by the way. So again, it's interesting that it's about water, but yeah, so I would watch The Little Mermaid a lot, and not since that time I've ever watched The Little Mermaid. So I didn't know anything. I love Aquafina, so it's not Scuttle Erasure, but I actually didn't remember that there was a Scuttle character.
Okay.
I understood that there would be new elements, so I was assuming it was like, because Aquafina is, top gal. She's top billing at the moment. She's everywhere, right? So I just assumed they just created a character to have her there. I didn't know anything about the TV show. I wasn't necessarily like a diehard fan of The Little Mermaid, but I got it. Like, I understood it. I preferred other Disneys. And don't worry, friends and lovers, in the list of themes, the first one is comparing live action Disneys that we've had so far. But yeah, overall, I agree with everything that you're saying. I think I didn't necessarily write it as a theme, but even just trying to understand what the audience was, because kids were there and they were bored. I was also bored. So like, who was this for? But yeah, the thing to take away from this is, Halle is the benchmark. Unfortunately, they needed to match her, and it didn't necessarily, I would say, get there, Halle Bailey floats to the surface in her heartfelt vocals, vibrant performance, and natural charm. While this reimagining had a lot of interesting trinkets, it dulled in comparison to her sparkle and shine.
Okay, I hear you.
I think what I will say, friends and lovers, whether you've watched the film, whether you have no interest in watching the film, if you're one of the nasty friends and lovers that have no interest and you're going to listen anyway, then, sit on our laps and continue along the journey. For those that won't be listening because they don't want to get spoiled, I will give the same preface that I gave in Woman King, in that how we feel about the film should be how we feel about the film. However, if you talk about like China box office, for example, interestingly, the audience score on Rotten Tomatoes is higher than the critic score. Perhaps why we also are doing an episode right now to contribute positively to that. So to have the discussion, to have the review, to have the analysis is in and of itself. However, when we live in a world where hashtag not my Ariel, hashtag all white mermaids matter, then we can't fucking have nuance, right?
No, we can't.
We're going to have it for the rest of this episode. But the reason why I need to preface this is, I would say, one of the best live actions of Disney that we've seen. There's a broader question of, is it necessary? I would say nay. However, they will and continue to have live action films, right? So to that virtue, it is one of the best that is out there. Also, it is very important to highlight that while apparently in the casting it was all ethnicities, we have a young Black lead in Halle Bailey.
We do.
And it's not just the gesture or the visual of her being in this. She fucking killed it.
Here's the thing, right? You've got people from around the world, for whatever reason. In Germany, the rating for this movie was a 0.97. And it later reset to 5. There's been an influx of really, really bad reviews or review bombing for this movie just because of a Black lead.
In China, they made the movie posters blue. Well, they made a skin blue.
They did?
Yeah.
They did? And they don't even fucking rate it there now.
Yeah.
One of the reviews sites don't have that.
Yeah.
So it goes to a bigger question of not only what the fuck, but we've been here several times.
Yeah.
We know the issue is there, but they'll use this excuse of, oh, it's the live action that they don't need to do. Fuck it. They did Lion King.
Yeah.
It was awful, but people went.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that, you don't get to see those black faces.
Well, I was going to say, they probably think they're still black.
Yeah. I think even when people Google and find out that Darth Vader is voiced by a black person, people will fucking freak out.
Yeah.
Not my Vader.
Oh,
so...
But that's what I'm saying, and that's why it's so important to preface this, because fuck off. Like, literally, if we can't have a place, because the For Your Reference household, as nasty as it is, as splooshy as it is also a place of nuance. So while we say there are things that didn't necessarily work or we didn't necessarily care for, that's the film as a film, Don't hide behind, oh, I didn't like it. No, you just don't fucking like black people. Just say that.
Yeah.
Like, it makes you uncomfortable to have a young Black woman lead. Just say that.
Yeah. And again, this question keeps on popping up, they'd cast a Black person in a Star Wars adaptation. People will freak out because what the fuck? There are no black people there, right? Mm-hmm. So, it's this thing where in a fantastical world, people don't want to see black people because they want to see black people in their fantasy. It's my fucking fantasy. I don't want to see a black person there.
Yeah.
So you can sweep it under the rug. You can say it's live action. The movie is boring, but nay, this movie is not 0.97 bad. Even Jesus Rolls was not. 2.
And we all don't prescribe to white Jesus in the For Your Reference household.
But it's true, right? So there's this underbelly that...
Like, just say it with your chest. Don't be like, this isn't historically accurate.
Yeah, say it with the chest and then we can move on.
Yep.
You know, once you say it, then at least it's out there, and you know, we can have a discussion and we can try and tackle it in a more direct manner rather than being subliminal and not getting to the issue. So whether you want to call it PC, or I saw there's a tabloid in China saying how because Disney is into the PC woke culture, that's why they had to put a black person, and they don't really want to see black people there apparently. So fair enough.
But then the math is mathing. Whatever you want to say at the end of the day, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fast X, but I think specifically you talk about Disney, so you're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy, right? You got all of these purple, green, blue, and this is also a popular sort of IP. So if it's not doing well, you can't hide around that shit. It's very clear.
Yeah, but anyway, there is a bigger issue. And I think that's why I drove, because initially we weren't even planning to cover this movie at all. We'd done it with Tim in Popcorn Pals.
Yes, and Tim was very gracious. So thank you, Tim, for having us on.
But I think there's an importance to this, and just to highlight the ridiculousness that is in the market. And however you thought the movie was, yes, it wasn't the best, but there was the one thing that people hate it for. She was the shining star of the whole thing.
Yeah,
makes
absolutely.
you wonder.
We do have race swapping on here, but we will go to something lighter. Friends and lovers, let's go to live action Disney, because I was even saying it, I think it was after the screening with you and Tim, and I said, you can feel the difference from Lion King to now, so much in way of production, not necessarily storytelling, but, you know, a lot has been done in the technology space since Lion King. I don't necessarily care for the Aladdin live action.
Or is it because you cancelled Willie? Oh, Big Willie don't live here no more.
Sometimes you need Big Willie, you know? Well, maybe Big Willie needs to visit these box offices, OT. Mulan, we also need to acknowledge the lack of humanity in regards to the weaker people. So the production of Mulan, obviously, you can't not acknowledge that. But also, it had everything going for it. It just wasn't great either. I don't know, I don't think it's kind of the same as the Fast franchise. They kind of all exist on the same banding for me personally. But there was a lot of things that definitely worked in The Little Mermaid.
Oh, 100%. Oh, I think weirdly enough, Mulan was my favorite so far.
Okay. Stacked cast.
Then you're just floundering with the options afterwards.
Yeah, I guess so. Let's move into race swapping. I called it Bridgerton. I love Shonda Rhimes, by the way. But I call it Bridgerton because as far as I understand, Bridgerton is set, the setting of Bridgerton doesn't necessarily denote to race, more so in regards to class, right? That's why everyone still has wet dreams about Reggae Jean Page, right? I still see him as Chicken George, but I guess that's my problem. The film kind of did this, which we can talk to in a second. So I guess there's something that I need to make very clear, because we are a black and brown space, friends and lovers, but when there's time to talk about Lilo and Stitch, we're pulling up and we're a wholly brown space, friends and lovers. Leave my Lilo and Stitch alone. Go and play with Moana. I've always really loved Lilo and Stitch. But anyway, I need to make a distinction between these two things. And I'm sure eventually in a proper format, we will talk about the colorism and the featureism in regards to the Lilo and Stitch casting. I hope this sounds like an antiquated relic in the future because they've done fucking right by our brown people and they've casted correctly, but maybe not, right? So casting according to, and even when we did The Harder They Fall with James Samuel, I said it's it's not on him to take the burden of the industry when they talked about Stagecoach Mary. Because, you know, Zazie Beetz, as much as we love, she is light skinned. And that wasn't reflective of Stagecoach Mary, right? And also I'm not black. So I was leaving space for you and for others to comment on that, right? Like the casting in regards to colorism, in regards to Lilo and Stitch, we're not playing into blood quantum because that's gross and disgusting. If you don't understand that or you want to have a bigger conversation, meet me in the DMs, friends and lovers. But, you know, when you have the cartoons look more Native Hawaiian than what's being casted, then there's a bigger conversation. But that's not the same as race swapping, is my point. Because in this conversation, people are like, oh, you have a problem with these light-skinned brown people with European features, but what about a black mermaid? And it's like, fuck off. They're not, no, but really, they're not the same conversation. And if that's the energy you want to come with, then literally fuck off. It's not the same thing. So going into race swapping, I'm going to say something controversial, OT.
Oh, all the other things you said weren't?
No. To my brown people, yes. I am conscious of, you know, we just talked about the box offices all around the world, the way The Little Mermaid is getting review bombed and that sort of thing. I am so heartbreakingly aware of how ugly and gross and unnecessarily disgusting this world is, right? Especially in regards to young black women, right? I am aware of that. However, I also function from story sovereignty and from independence of IP. And what I mean by that is I don't need a female Ghostbusters.
Wow.
I don't need a female Ocean's 11.
Wow.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, people should be interested in a story not because of the proximity to the IP. Because then that's what you get. You get people that are like, oh, I was suckling at the teat of this IP and it means so much to me. Fuck off, right? That's a different conversation. But what I'm saying is, you know, even Yasuke, even though we didn't necessarily enjoy it, we appreciated the production and the attention that was put on Yasuke. You know what I mean? It wasn't just making a black samurai Jack, but I think that's just Afro samurai, right? But you know what I mean? Like, you wouldn't make like a black Johnny Bravo.
I'd love to see that.
Okay, fine. I guess I don't know if you're being a dick or if you're being genuine. But my point is I prefer to dabble away from existing and having proximity to IP and having standalone stories.
Oh, 100%. I know where you're coming from. I do agree with that aspect of it. I think the issue with how stories are done now and how people see, because I grew up watching Little Mermaid, I just need them to regurgitate whatever it is that I loved.
Yeah.
Exactly the way it was. But then what's the point? You already have it in that form from back then. You can just rewatch it. You can pop in a DVD and watch whatever the hell you wanted to watch from back then.
Yeah.
So it's not, I need to pass it to my kid so my kid knows what it's like. It's still there. It's not going anywhere. And this is the thing, right? Disney will continue doing live action adaptations because it's a different spin on how stories are told, especially with the originality of shit being really low. It's a way of them doing, let's do this. Let's tweak one or two things in this. And then,
but then it plays into that argument of it's not as good, you know? Which I would also say another controversial thing. A lot of like POC leading representation happened at the end of the peak of the height of Marvel, right? So people are already fatigued and it's like they're using that as an excuse to say, I don't like this, you know?
Yeah.
Even though I have very firm feelings of Shang-Chi and the Ten Ring. But I guess what I want to come to, at the end of the day, Halle Bailey was casted, right? Even though I don't necessarily, I see why, you know, I see the cogs, I understand why race swapping happens because some people won't go to watch a Black Mermaid film if it wasn't existed in this IP, right? I understand that. It just makes me sad. It just makes me sad that that's the level that we're in. However, now that we know, I'm all the way in with this film, right?
Yeah.
Like whatever I have to say or critique about it isn't on that basis alone.
Mm-hmm.
I would also make very clear, friends and lovers, I guess if it isn't apparent, Black and brown and indigenous peoples all over the world have some sort of law in regards to half human, half existing in the ocean, half fish, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Mer people.
More people.
Yeah, we've got the Kul Khan. I was telling you when we were watching, I was waiting for Namor to show up and it would have made it complete. One more thing I want to say before we move on to the themes in regards to The Little Mermaid is Christian Navarro was very keen on auditioning and he was very publicly very upset that he was not casted as Eric.
Oh, really?
He is very attractive. He is someone that I would forget about the rotting vegetables in my fridge. If you've listened to Popcorn Pals, you know what that means. But I just want to read this to you. I just want to get your thoughts, essentially. He talked about how Disney went through a who's list of actors of color and still went with the white guy for Prince Eric's role. So much for diversity. I guess 2 brown leads would have tanked the movie, right? Boring.
Well, one black lady is tanking the movie, according to them.
But maybe it would have been worse.
Yeah. I think, and that's where you get the territory of, oh, you can't have 2 black leads then because it
becomes a black film.
It does. Yeah.
Which shout outs to Aziz Ansari in Master of None. They literally explored that you can't have 2 Indians because then it becomes an Indian show.
Yeah.
Okay, so focusing back on Ariel, I want to talk about her sort of naivety, right? Because as far as I understand, I think Tim also clarified, it is pretty much in the vein of the original of she was kind of in a bubble in the sense that she was insulated from the very real pain and damage that humans can cause to mer people.
Mm-hmm.
Her older sisters were very cognizant of it and her daddy was very cognizant of it. But I don't think it was ever really explained to her either. She was just told, pretty much like Simba, like, don't go over there. You're not supposed to go over there.
Nah, she was told, don't go over there because those people killed your mom. And
actually, yeah.
She still went. Not like, and I think this is where when you dig through the movie, or at least the law, because Tim mentioned that in his opinion that there was, in the original, Ariel is more thirsty there, where there's no really a story. It's Ariel seeing Eric and being like, bam, I'm in love.
Yeah.
While here, yes, it wasn't as immediate. We still didn't get to see that connection being built in a more realistic way. When everything's looking like a documentary, it just didn't feel like she interacted as much with Eric.
No, it was all about him.
Yeah, even like it was more, take the mermaid, dear cool, one interaction. But I think most of the time what I remembered was Eric just doing all the talking and not even having Ariel respond or try and communicate in any way she could.
But I think I don't think she was also, because she was so bright-eyed, I don't think she would have put him to task for something. When he was showing his little maps being like, oh, look at this land. She was like, okay, this is great. This is nice.
Yeah, but then they did lay the foundation that she was always fascinated by these human objects.
I guess so. And I did say it on Popcorn Pals, but if you haven't had a chance to listen yet, I also want to put it on the For Your Reference podcast. I want a world where young girls, especially young Black girls, can explore and be free in some sort of sense to have adventures that young girls should be having, But sometimes there is a consciousness of how the world works, right? So you don't want kids to be scarred, but you also want them to be aware of the very real danger, right? And that's kind of what was missing in this film, coming from a non-parent. So take that as you will. But even with Daddy Trident, I understood exactly what he was saying, but it's also that wisdom wasn't passed on to her because after a while, saying stay away from them, they killed your mom. It just sounds like words after a while to a young girl that wants to go and explore.
Yeah, fact.
Something that was really annoying near the end of the film was Daddy Trident saying, you shouldn't have to give up your voice to be heard. Bruh, you never listened to her in the first place.
He was reflecting.
Even if she had a
We're
voice.
seeing growth. We're seeing growth. He's reflecting and accepting that, oh, girl, I should have listened to you.
Just like Thor's dad, even with 2 eyes, you could only see half the truth. Let's go into the next theme. This is social commentary. This is us versus them. It kind of goes back to race swapping. I guess my general sort of comment for this, the casting is confusing when they have dialogue of us versus them. You know, the sea gods hate us. This is our struggle. We need to hold on to our culture.
Oh, I just took that as if it's humans versus nature, us versus them.
Well, it was very clear between the Wakandans and the Kulkulkandians.
No, but it was interesting just seeing how the queen navigated, you know, and I think I mentioned this because you have a lot of, so the sort of workers who are Caribbean, who are black,
Yeah.
that'd be, you know, with accents, you know, and then the queen who's elevated has a British accent.
Uh-huh.
I was like, okay, so this us versus them, bruv.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying.
But that's me just picking at something, you know. It's not that it was overlaid like that. It's me trying to find something to just quarrel.
She also said something to the effect of, our worlds were never meant to be together.
Mm-hmm.
It was just very confusing. And what do you think? We don't need to spend a lot of time on this, but what do you think about Eric being a young white boy, but him also being adopted as well? Do you think it was just a way to explain how he ended up in the story?
Yeah, 100%. How else would he? It's the only explanation they could have had for that, unless there's some different biology going around. But yeah.
So the us versus them, you know, aside from the ambiguous sort of arbitrary line, I would say, I don't think it wasn't even a time thing because this film was over 2 hours. I just don't think it gave itself enough of a platform to explore it, you know, because they were trying to, but they didn't necessarily execute it. So it kind of fell flat to me.
Yeah, but I don't even think they showed the struggle that they were going through at all. Because Eric would say, oh, there's different tribes or different places that are doing X trades and they're more prosperous. But from my point of view, they're looking quite wealthy.
Yeah, you're doing better than the people that are serving you.
It just didn't seem, they didn't show that, oh, we're struggling, we're trying, we in X amount of years or months, we want people to provide for people. But that wasn't the focus. So it just felt, okay, so why are you bringing it up into the story when you don't have enough time? They had enough time to intertwine all these stories that they laid out, but they didn't.
Yeah, and I think aside from the obvious of the mer people, their struggles just felt the same, right? Like it didn't feel like they had unique sort of things. Also, I want to immortalize this on For Your Reference as well as Popcorn Pals. I feel like of all of the good things that the Little Mermaid did, it approached environmentalism in a more earnest and more effective way than Avatar 1 and 2.
Ridiculous statement.
Oh, excuse me, did we have Eric become an Avatar merman? No, he stayed the white man.
Well, we don't know what the sequel brings.
Fuck off. If that's what happens, I'm going to tank it, OT.
No, but
there was more of an earnestness because the people that were indigenous to the merman lands were the ones that were saying this shit. Not Jake Sully, Eric having his X Factor audition on land. You want to end on something light, OT?
Oh, what's that?
Before we do, Halle Bailey is not the first young black woman to be in a live action Disney film, did you know?
Oh, really? Tell me more.
Brandy and Cinderella.
Oh, shit.
Man, you're forgetting your lore, OT.
I'm forgetting my lore. that was the only Cinderella I watched.
You didn't know Cinderella was white the whole time?
Nah.
Hashtag not my Cinderella.
I thought it was just Brandy and that's it.
That's a beautiful world to be in.
It is.
Speaking of Brandy, the musicality of it all, let's talk about the songs. Let's talk about the music.
Those are the best parts of the movie.
Yeah.
Under the Sea sort of brought the vibrance of the original, which is what we all love to see. But then after that, it just went back to its sort of dim documentary-like nature.
Yeah.
I just wanted them to explore it further, but the songs were so nice in this. I think Haley, Ariel, Ursula really did great in this. Even David.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed their performances. I can't add anything to Scuttle, though.
We don't even have time to address Aquafina and her black set. We don't even have time to address that. But the crowd was eating up the scuttlebutt. They wanted to know what the scuttlebutt was. In regards to the music, I just want to focus on Ariel. She made me feel things, man.
Yeah.
Maybe if she was around, I wouldn't have drowned when I was a little baby Seamus.
Maybe not, but then you'd also want to become a mermaid, wouldn't you?
Why can't I be brought into shore and I can be Eric?
Yeah, why not?
Why not? That got real, OT.
It did.
Thank you for joining the first module of the FYR curriculum. We're going to finish off in a segment we call For Your Reference. OT.
I'm going to reference Brandy's Cinderella.
Oh, nice.
What about you?
I will reference the animated version of Mulan.
Nice.
If you would like to, actually, shout out to Mushu, Tim's dog. I don't manage the social media account, but if you would like to see non-Mushu related stuff on Twitter and Instagram, we're at ForYourFPod.
Write us an email at hello@frapodcast.com.
We're also on Halle Bailey for everything and everywhere in all the places podcast if you like to leave a rating and review. And we'll see you guys next week.
Halle Bailey. Oh, hallelujah.
Bye.
Yeah.